Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razak at CMTrading. Today is February 25th, 2022, and today is Friday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, we're watching the markets recovering, if you call it that, from this massive sell-off that we had due to the Ukrainian and Russian conflict. Now, looking at the major economic events of the day, at 3:30 South African time out of the United States, we have a core personal consumer expenditure price index. This is really an important one, okay? So you do want to know what's coming out. And looking at the various markets, starting out with the Forex symbols, the euro and the British pounds both bounce, but, and we're going to take a look at the charts just to say what the but is. And looking at the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ, they're both bounce. Gold and oil retracing in terms of commodities as the market's kind of recovering and getting back to themselves. FAANG stocks, biggest gainers in the stocks. And lastly, Bitcoin recovers. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So what a day of trading. This is really going into the record books. So we had a low of 111.15. Now that's a supportish level on the euro. If you look at a daily chart, that's as low as we got for the year, but we bounced off of it. Now, I'm not saying we're going back to the 114, 115-ish level, but you see that the markets are kind of recovering and at least showing themselves a certain spot right now on the downside. Look at that volume spike that we had yesterday. Unbelievable. That is crazy kind of volume. On average volume, we're at 12,000. Here we're at 20 million. So this is huge. Now looking at the Gbp Usd, also here we had a massive sell-off to supportish level 133.87, then bouncing off of it. Now looking at the Aussie dollar, we kind of capitulated yesterday and then bounced massive off of it to 72 from 70.90. Now that is a major support level as well, and this is why it's such a incredible trading opportunity, because these type of levels are really being respected. Now looking at crude oil before we go into gold, trading at $94. We hit a high of 100. We corrected ourselves and back in the upper range here. If we look at it like that, we're up in the upper range at $94. So, you know, for all intents and purposes, this is really just a spike. And this is not really real. This is news driven. So it really didn't earn this area. Okay, so we still have this resistance at 95.70. Just keep that in mind as that still unfolds. Now looking at gold, all right, looking at this massive move yesterday, we spiked all the way up to 1972. Now remember, 2066 is its all-time high. Okay, so we didn't hit that. If we look at a weekly, you could see that 2066. So we didn't come close to that. Okay, about 80 points away from that altogether, but we did push higher. Okay, what I do want to highlight right now is that we are at resistance. This is basically resistance right here. Okay, so just be aware of it. 1918 is resistance. So, you know, if it's going to retrace here, that's normal for today because we're watching the U.S. markets actually somewhat recover. Looking at the Dow Jones yesterday, we had this nice move up, finally finding some footing at 32,200-ish level and then bouncing above it towards the end of the day. Now we're trading at 32,000. All intents and purposes, okay, our push higher. Okay, if we go from 32,200-ish level, it could go all the way up to 34,000, okay, potentially. It could go another 1,000 points up. That would be somewhat about 50% from our previous sell-off of 35,700, maybe a little bit higher, 34,200. So that's what I'm looking for it to do. I'm looking for it to bounce higher. Not sure if we'll get that, believe it or not, okay? Even though we're at the bottom of this 30 of the selling of the RSI, okay? On a 4-hour chart, we're actually just above it, so we're bouncing already. But with that said, just keep that in mind. You know, this stuff with Ukraine, it's going to be an unfolding story. It's not going to end today, okay? Now, just keep in mind also that we're in a huge inflationary environment right now, and also keep in mind that we are in a economic, I don't want to call it depression, but we're on the brinks of an economic collapse as well. Okay, so with that, all that said, okay, this could be a nightmare. This could be like a perfect storm if anybody's ever seen the movie. We have several factors that just add it all in, give you the most massive kind of, you know, bad scenario as you could possibly imagine. And so potentially, if Russia gets agitated by other countries and other countries start retaliating, even in non-aggressive way, non-confrontational combat ways, they may, awaken the giant within to a certain degree and start taking measures into their own hands, whether it's the United States, whether it's other European countries. And that's a scary place to be, okay? We haven't been there since World War II, on this massive level. So that's something to consider going forward. And remember, markets don't like uncertainty. And in this type of environment, any kind of uncertainty is just a panic button. So keep that in mind as we continue going here. Now, looking at the major stocks, Apple was the biggest gainer from 152 to 162. Facebook even has a green candle finally after dipping to 190 below that 200 level. Looking at Microsoft also getting itself back to the 294, still below 300, which is an important number for it. Cisco also bouncing here at support at 53.20. Amazon also at the bottom of its support but bouncing. So the tech stocks did bounce. Even JP Morgan had a little bit of a recovery yesterday. If we look at a daily chart, you could see that after gapping down, finding its support in 141. Okay, so that's also something to consider. Lastly, Bitcoin at the middle of the range between 40,000, 41,000 and 33 or 34,000 at the bottom range. Okay, but we did rally yesterday as we were making itself a double bottom. So with that said, I think the markets are just taking this into stride. How far is Russia going to go into Ukraine? How much more? Like, are they going to just take the western part of Ukraine or the eastern part of Ukraine, namely, that's a correction, instead of the western part, and they leave the western part to itself? That has yet to be all solved. Okay, so depending how big this extortion is by Russia, we should see just tremendous amount of further volatility in the markets. This is Fred Razak. I want to wish everybody a great trading day and a beautiful weekend. Thank you.